Welcome to On the Chain. This is Jeff here with co-host Chip. What is going on, everybody? What is going on? Ripple, what is going on? XRP, what is going on? XLM, what is going on in the crypto space at large? Chip, why XLM may replace XRP, and can XRP survive the settlement? Those are just a few questions we want you guys to think about while we have the show today. We're going to get into this thing. We have a lot to talk about, a short amount of time to do it. So, Chip, if you're ready to kick this thing off.
Welcome to On the Chain.
Welcome everybody to On the Chain, and my dog is going crazy once again, man. Just the way it works sometimes. Yeah, so what are we gonna do, guys? Let's jump right into it because, like Jeff said, we both have places to be, and when the show concludes. So, Jeff, why don't you cue this? So, Alchemist, we've been reading your comments, and they're phenomenal. I love your bullish on banning, and look at that. XRP is the worst crypto investment in 7 years in the space. Them's are just the facts. Yeah, it hasn't been it's been a crowd pleaser in some ways. In other ways, it hasn't really delivered despite all that utility on the price side of things. But we're gonna talk about that too. But I think Jeff, you had something you wanted to start us off with today. Let's.
Yeah, we got to start this one off. So this is interesting, right? Ripple is one of the few projects out there solving problems. And obviously they have cross-border remittance. Obviously they also have a liquidity solving solution. And this is going to be really interesting because we are going to kick this video off. Let's get a little bit of insight into what is going on with Ripple.
The market for global payments is immense. Estimated at over $130 trillion and growing. But its infrastructure is archaic. The challenge? Trapped capital. Intermediaries with high fees. Slow settlements. Incomplete transaction data. Frustrating failure rates. And single-point security exposures. At Ripple, we understand these challenges and have created an innovative payment solution that leverages the XRP ledger and the digital asset XRP. XRP is the perfect crypto for payments because it transacts quickly at very low cost with high throughput and is carbon neutral. Ripple's payment solution uses XRP to bridge fiat currencies, eliminate pre-funding, and makes payment terms visible, which supports our partners' compliance efforts. And we offer affordable line of credit options that enable capital agility and rapid scaling. When you are ready to scale to new corridors, our network provides you access to premier receivers in key markets that you can start transacting with in as little as 4 weeks. Here's how a Ripple payment works. The sending institution requests a fiat-to-fiat quote on pricing and foreign exchange, or FX. The sender receives and approves a quote with pre-negotiated FX margin from the receiver. The sender submits the payment instructions. The sender debits funds from a digital asset wallet funded by Ripple with XRP and transfers funds to the receiver in less than 3 seconds. The receiver immediately pays out the end beneficiary in fiat according to the payment instructions. In parallel, the receiver converts XRP to fiat. The sending institution is invoiced at the start of the following business week, post-transaction. The benefits are clear. Payments in seconds with lower transaction fees that are available when you need them, are reliable, transparent, and are managed elegantly. From remittance to small and medium enterprise to treasury payments, Ripple transforms your global payments.
Man, Chip, what are your thoughts? You're muted.
Yeah, I had to mute myself because of my dog, but no, I think it's good to represent exactly really what Ripple's kind of about. I mean, how old is that video, by the way? Is that?
I don't know. I haven't been on their website in a little bit, and it looks like they've had some minor changes to the websites when we went on there. It's interesting because, as we get into some of these digital asset projects, and we're moving, Chip, from a point where everything blockchain could get money to solutions that have real utility. And here's one that's been around for what, 10, 11 years now, with full utility and full use case, right? So if we're looking at what their primary use case, and obviously we just saw, and to remind everybody out there in the ecosystem, how XRP is utilized as a base solution for cross-border payment. And Ripple is not the only one unique to utilizing the XRPL, but to be able to take advantage of the cross-border payment, the crypto liquidity, and also helping to implement CBDCs. And this is going to be an interesting dilemma right here, Chip, which is the implementation of CBDC, but the cross-border payment. And most of Ripple's functionality seems to be focused in on banking and financial institutions, although they do kind of compartmentalize it to small, medium-sized enterprise. But the primary model is really banks and financial institutions to help move, large amounts of money.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wanted to read this comment here. So Crypto Eddie's saying, "Hey, is this a new time for you two?" I think because no, it's the same time. So I don't know why. Maybe Japan went on like moved from a daylight savings time. I don't know if you guys have that concept. And I don't even know why we're still doing it. Nobody has a reason. They're like, well, the farmers, Jeff. And I'm like, well, farmers don't care. Just set it and forget it because it messes up your time schedule. Takes you by the time you just start settling and get used to it, you got to change it again. So it's weird. Mm-hmm. So that's a weird oddity right there. The whole kit and caboodle here. But there is some interesting news going on out there, Jeff. I mean, quite honestly, I guess we probably should jump to some of the finer bits. Let's jump into more of the Ripple type stuff. But I thought this would be a pretty good one to maybe start with. This was on the website the other day. This was Ripple threw this up. I feel like I'm still waking up, Jeff. I feel like I'm not 100% there. But this one here, and guys, please, you know what? Stop with the white type on a black background. It's not a good look, man. I say this every time. It's like, can somebody wake up the who's ever handling the UI UX over there?
Wait till you scroll down on the article.
Yeah,
there's nothing there. There's something wrong with their website. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just had this up like 5 minutes ago. I was there, Jeff. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, their website crashed. So there's some issue with all their articles. Their entire blog section is blank.
Oh wow. Well, there you go. There's a failure at the so it's not just a failure of the live, it's a failure everywhere, right? I wonder if we can get this back on the
While you're working on that, I'm just going to throw up a parallel to Stellar. Stellar is also building in the space, and when we talk about these use cases, I find this interesting also because here's Ripple's building towards a specific direction, obviously utilizing the XRPL. So the Microsoft Apple battle is coming down to the XRPL and Stellar. So both kind of moving in a similar direction when we're talking about the movement of money. Obviously, there's other solutions and projects being built out there, but as the foundational infrastructure for money, Chip, here's Stellar for remittance, Stellar for cross-border payments, Stellar for CBDCs, Stellar for fintech, Stellar for on and off ramps, Stellar for aid, USDCs, and so Stellar, keep losing this, but Stellar for CBDCs. I think we're going to see an interesting battle taking place as we have Ripple and Stellar moving into a space for these central bank digital currencies. The question is, as to whether or not the CBDCs are going to take root. And so I find this to be, obviously this has been up here. Yeah, it's not brand new. But we're getting to a point though, Chip, that this is starting to matter. Right? Maybe for a little while it didn't matter for a little bit, because everything is still new. Governments are still trying to figure out how to integrate. There's a battle between direct digital currency and central bank digital currency that's based off of software that is that originally, found its way into the decentralized infrastructure. Jeff, don't you find that there's like a, I don't know, it's interesting because if we have these blockchain solutions that were originally, built around this notion of decentralized finance and decentralized infrastructures,
Yep.
to move over to helping central banks build their digital currencies that are centralized, but yet they want to utilize a decentralized network or infrastructure to build it.
Semi.
Semi.
Yeah.
But this is the direction. Isn't that better though than just direct digital currency of, let's say, a digital yuan that just 100% just a digital number, like represented like a piece of paper?
I don't think so. No,
So
I
the
don't think
same?
so at
Do you
all.
think it's
No.
the same?
First of all, I don't really get. First of all, I don't really get. I mean, it's a weird dichotomy, right? So you have decentralized. So you have a centralized company like the Stellar Foundation, or let's say Ripple. Then you have the decentralized asset XLM and XRP, respectively. Then you have then you have a centralized entity at like a central bank. First of all, I've been against central banks from. There's a reason, like the founders didn't want them for the U.S. and we got rid of them twice. Andrew Jackson was the last one that got rid of it, crushed what they had as a central bank. And now the next phase of that has to go away, which is auditing this conglomerate that nobody knows what it does, just magic. But I'm not a fan of anything built on a system of debt. This is the whole issue. And I think when you get to the crux of the matter, when you say that let's say the Federal Reserve here in the US, but it's very similar in other countries where they say, well, we'll loan you 1 unit, which is here in the 1 USD. And then you say, okay, and you want 1 unit, but we'll loan you another one because you got to pay the interest on that one. So it's like you get caught up in this whole interest thing. And why do we have a third party? The sovereignty part of it matters. The sovereignty of the country, of every country, ought to have control as it relates to the people of their own monetary system. And most places with central banks do not have that. Then you've got like the European Central Bank, which is going to decide for all of Europe. We're going to tell you how it's going to work for Europe. Because when they try to do that whole, we have the US is one country with states, and you have the Euro with the European Union, where they all kind of blob together. And so I think, Jeff, at its root, when you think about it, the CBDC itself is programmable, and which is a great advancement. However, I worry about to what length they're going to take that, right? Are they going to be able to program in conditions? And if they're willing to have a third party be in control with very little audits, very little oversight, no transparency, how would we trust any central bank to be good when it comes to respecting the people, right? And not programming these weird things like, say, and I brought this example up many times, oh, you're a little bit overweight, so we're going to make sure you buy only healthy food. I mean, it sounds preposterous, but that's a crazy example, but I think that's where we're going, Jeff. And when we think about a digital, Jeff, on my phone, when do I ever see my fiat? If I have a 20 in my wallet, my kid was just home from college. Anytime I had any cash in my wallet, it doesn't even stay in there. It's all digital. And by the way, when I transfer money to her up at school, I hit a button. She says, it shows up on her screen. She says, thanks. She never sees it. She goes to the store. She uses her Apple Pay. If you use Google Pay, right, it's a digital number. So the difference between a digital, like say a digital yuan, a digital USD, whatever it looks like, to me, it's a number anyway. So the CBDC has some programmability into it, but I think the big thing that's confusing a lot of people, especially newbies, people that go like, oh, CBDCs is crypto. No, it's a private blockchain with zero transparency. Most of them, they're not building on a public blockchain. Banks will want to do the same thing. So that's kind of weird, Jeff, for me.
It is. So if we look at some of the key findings, and so here's how they're breaking this down, and this is where it's so important. This is from the Atlantic Council Geoeconomic Center. So they're breaking down some key findings of countries around the world that are investigating digital currency or CBDCs. And here's where everyone really needs to be a little in tune, because we have the conversation, Chip, about decentralized finance. We talk about the blockchain technology. We talk about the cryptocurrency. And then the governments come in. They say, well, we have the digital currency. It's the same thing. Don't worry. We're looking out for your interest. Obviously, there's some concern, which is critical why everybody is educated on this. The majority of the population that still are trying to figure out what a Bitcoin is, they're going to be easily swayed into, well, we're building it's going to be similar, but it's going to be safer than Bitcoin. And the reason why it's or digital asset, they're going to use Bitcoin because it's kind of like Kleenex, but they're going to utilize examples like FTX. See how FTX crashed? That's an example of unregulated solution that is dangerous for the average person and the average retail investor. But we know better. Hence, we're going to wrap in this whole whether, to your point, whether it's a CBDC, but we're going to utilize on the back end, maybe they're going to use software out of the box like a Stellar, or they're going to use the XRPL, and they're going to then create kind of these private side chains to do it. And we saw some testing there, so much better, at least, than the direct digital currency, where there's no third party and the government's 100% in control, and they're just going to roll out technology like the digital yuan. But here's what I found, surprising, because this is a little bit, obviously we're starting to see the direction that central banks want to move in. 114 countries representing over 95% of global GDP are exploring CBDCs. In May of 2020, Chip, 3 years ago, there were only 35 countries considering. So that to me is, that's a major, major move. And so if there's all these countries and their central banks are looking at CBDCs, yet Gary Gensler keeps telling us how horrible digital currencies are, or at least how horrible cryptocurrency is, we're starting to find that there's actually a trend in this conspiratorial discussion, right, Chip? Because they're trying to tell us how bad our current decentralized infrastructure is, but we have to rely on them for the full centralized infrastructure that just isn't ready yet, right? So if they were ready to replace it, they would roll it out now, but they're just not ready. They're probably 10 years behind, 15 years behind the 8 ball. There's companies like the Stellar Foundation and Ripple that are a decade ahead of every single government in the world in terms of what they've built, the infrastructure they built.
Yeah, that's true. But also too, I think the other programmable issue too is like, if you say, okay, you know what, you're going to get this money, or there's going to be some sort of a tax rebate, but you have to spend it in 90 days. So that's the other programmability with a CBDC, is you can actually expire. So then that's like, you have it, or you have a certain period of time in which you can actually utilize it. So these are the kind of things and conditions where would I rather have a digital representation? I already have that. It's a digital representation. Anytime I open my phone, look at any bank account, it's always going to be the same, right? But when I think about what's going on with Stellar making some moves here, look at this. So big news, put this tweet out. Stellar Foundation's joining the CFTC's Global Market Advisory Committee as its only blockchain representation. We're excited to lend a crypto native perspective as the committee advises on the challenges and opportunities on a global marketplace. So if you think about, this is kind of an interesting play, because the CFTC really, honestly, aside from what the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC is doing, they're the ones that really regulate crypto, right? And they've kind of been really silent. And Gary Gensler has been shooting his mouth off, talking about clarity and how clear everything is, and going after companies and making making a big a loud noise over on that side. But the CFTC, so they're being advised by the Stellar Foundation here, and they're the only one in blockchain, at least at this moment in time. So, I mean, it can't be a really bad thing. They kind of break it down here a little bit more, representing blockchain in the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which is CFTC, because honestly, crypto is a commodity and it's not a security. But Gary Gensler has a tough time with that. They're going to join traditional players such as JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and BlackRock. So I like the voice. I like this. I like the fact that you have somebody. If it's going to be somebody, I'd like it to be Ripple. But if it's going to be somebody else, I think the Stellar Foundation is going to be good representation. You know, Cardano, some other ones as well that I think would be good. I think they have to add some more. But if you're looking at the old stalwarts here, J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and BlackRock, and some would say that might be everything that might be, you know, missing with, you know, as far as when we go to look at traditional finance, right? The conclusion, and then let's see. Yeah, opportunity for the industry to participate in conversations that'll inform future regulatory structures and clarity. Clarity, there's that word again, Jeff. Clarity, it's so clear. Clear rules of the road, smart policy. But hopefully Congress is going to be able to do that, Jeff. I hope that they're going to be able to do that. I mean, they have formed that subcommittee. But forming committees and making tweets is great. But, you know, action's what I like to see. And when they talk about what they want to accomplish, and it's so funny, Jeff, it's like, you know, if this was our company, Jeff, we would say the same thing. As the only blockchain represented on the committee, you know, as of now, they're going to add more. We hope to bring this unique perspective to layer one protocols and what it means to the underlying infrastructure, you know. So many promising applications. Remittances being one of the bright spots in crypto today, with one of the more critical applications is stable coins. So again, it's great that there's a voice sitting at the table aside, you know, with the other ones. But Jeff, what are your thoughts about them joining and really advising the CFTC? I mean, is the CFTC doing anything to endanger crypto today? And do you think this is good that they're in an advisory role here?
Yeah, I mean, 100% positive that they're taking an advisory role. You know, I have no issue with the Stellar Foundation as it sits at this moment, you know, getting involved with the CFTC. I think we need to see Ripple engage with the CFTC. I think we need the Stellar Foundation engaging with the CFTC. And for that point, in principle, you know, that means that, you know, the Ethereum Foundation, you know, is probably already involved in some sort of consultative work with the CFTC. You have Hedera, you know, should be involved with them from similar consultative approach. And then there's a whole bunch of other smaller ancillary companies that are working in and around, you know, the solution. So if we think about even, you know, what is it? Is it now called Matic? What was the
Polygon? Yeah,
Polygon is it?
Matic. It's called
Matic, the asset, and Polygon. So, you know, why not bring them in? You know, Flare, when Flare finally gets their feet and finds their path, why not bring them in into the CFTC? You know, for a consultative approach. I think these are some of the leaders in the ecosystem, and they need to learn. They need to figure this out. And how is it that, Chip, that the SEC with Gary Gensler of all of the different, even so, you know, they should bring in, you know, some of the CEOs and leaders of crypto exchanges, you know. But how is it that the SEC chose, or the U.S. government chose, out of all of the different leaders in the space, that they were going to turn to Sam Bankman-Fried as a representative, not within the CFTC, but they wanted to bring him in to talk about drafting policy for cryptocurrency. So they brought him in. That's the one person. This shows you the lack of integrity that many within the government have, or the lack of reality, connection to reality, or the ulterior motive that many of those had, the leadership had at that point, to then, you know, bring in someone like Sam Bankman-Fried. And here you have all these others, you know. So I think the CFTC is 100% on point. You know, bring in the Stellar Foundation. They've been around. They've got some value added. 100% bring in Ripple. Bring that team in. Obviously, maybe there's some conflict because of what's going on with the SEC. But maybe if the CFTC wants to have a seat at the table, maybe they need to bring Ripple in to poke a stick in the eye of Gary Gensler and the SEC to say, hey, you know what? You guys might not appreciate Ripple, but we do.
Yeah, agreed. So, Jeff, I do have that article up here. What happened is somebody changed something happened with the style sheet, so the text is still there. So I'm gonna you could highlight it. I couldn't.
Hey, it went white.
I was going to change the style sheet, but I couldn't find the. But I just highlighted here. But they talk about, they kind of draw this point. This is talking about just the represents. This thing is the maximizing creator value with built-in royalties, especially when it comes to NFTs. And they talk about that struggle, that well-documented struggle. Metallica, Lars Ulrich, who's a drummer for Metallica, led a very public fight against that illegal downloading against Napster, which eventually brought Napster down, right? Brought Napster to a crawl and kind of like eliminated that. But Napster was great because that's where we really got. I mean, I remember Napster was fantastic because you could find, once you keyed into a certain type of music, it was kind of like what Spotify does now. It's like if you click on an artist and you scroll down, it says also like-minded artists. So, but instead of Spotify curating that for you, you had individual users that were kind of curating music. It was the first time we really plugged into this whole idea of curation from a personal standpoint, because what would happen is you'd go to somebody's drive and you would see the one artist you were looking for, but then you see all these other fantastic artists you had no other idea about it. So that was something that it kind of launched that 20 plus years ago. So they talk about the challenges of Web 2, the centralization of control of how Web 2 works, which is where we are pretty much right now. The streaming platforms like Spotify, sometimes less than meager compensation that they pay to musicians. I'm not going to get into everything here, but they talk about the royalty payments are basically routine. It's not the case for most artists. Many artists are only compensated for the initial sale, but if a piece of art does appreciate in value or the work is resold, the artist really doesn't receive anything here. And so this whole concept with NFTs is fantastic because of the built-in royalty. So, and this is really where the Bored Apes Yacht Club really excelled, because the original floor price, it was when people started reselling it on the secondary market of where that really took off, right? And then you had that built-in royalty. So maybe they only bought it for, let's say, $30,000, but then the next one went for $500,000. The next one went for $4 million. So $4 million with a 10% royalty built in, $400K on something somebody's reselling your work. Every time that's resold, there's that royalty built in. And so this is what they're talking about, the issues in the past. And so usually artists are only compensated on that first sale. It doesn't matter if it's resold. So plus there's no transparency. They don't even know had it been resold. So it can be resold 10 times. They have no clue. I mean, you might know a public artist that you might hear about it in a press release or something. But so they're talking about this maximization of the creators. On XRP, recently said that royalties are an essential part of art in Web3. In fact, royalties were one of the main selling points at the beginning of the NFT bull market. Artists could not only sell their artwork in the digital realm, but perpetually receive income on secondary sales, which was previously challenging task to execute. Now, what are your thoughts on this, Jeff? As far as the built-in royalties, I mean, is that a great thing, or is that, how do you see that for artists?
Yeah, so the whole concept of the NFT space, and having a mechanism for artists to find a path towards monetization, and to have in some sort of a built-in royalties program that follows the artwork. I mean, if you created the art, shouldn't you be paid in an ongoing basis if there's that opportunity, if there's that possibility? But it takes it out of the hands, like, we're talking about the curators, but it takes it out of the hands also. It puts it into a decentralized framework. If people find value in your art, you're getting paid for it ongoing. It doesn't just you make the art the one time, then it gets into the hands of a gallery, and the gallery now, if it goes on to I guess it goes to the secondary markets, it gets sold, and that's your art, but you're not getting a percentage of that art any longer.
Well, Jeff, can we do the same thing Can we do the same thing when we release our Yeti token? So when we get our Yeti token out there, could we build in a royalty? So anytime it changes hands, maybe it's small, people don't really realize it. Can you imagine if you had the same thing for a token? So every time a token changed hand, you would be like a 0.5%. You'd go back to the original person that had it. But in this case, it would be the organization. But And in our case, it would be like the Yeti Foundation, right? So we set up this Yeti Foundation, protect the Yetis, endangered, obviously, in the Himalayan mountains. And that fund would totally go to supporting the Yetis. And Jeff, I'm not sure if you know about this, but I've heard from a really weird source that they have, have you heard about how they cook their food? What they use?
No. How are they
gas
cooking their
stoves,
food?
apparently. I've heard this, that they're able to somehow utilize the gas that comes native in the ground. They've hooked this up to these some kind of like hoses that they have, and they cook with gas stoves. I don't know if it's true or not, Jeff.
It ain't so.
I don't know if it's real or not. But getting back to this, so
I mean, you know how they move their carts around?
How do they do that, Jeff? I have to say it's probably with some kind of a fuel.
With big V8 engines.
Gas
powered.
Gas powered. See, because the Yetis are really smart. That's the thing about the Yetis. The Yetis know what they're talking about. And
they do.
They're badass when you think about it, Jeff. They're badass.
They're
thinking
very badass.
Of, leveraging things that are in the ground, and how do I make that and bring it out of the ground and make it for the, to be able to power certain things. So they talked about Magic Eden and X2, Y2 recently moved to make these royalties optional, but then even OpenSea, the largest NFT marketplace, came close to cutting out the royalties on their policy. Now, Jeff, it's like you build so OpenSea, right? It's the most trafficked NFT platform, massive, right? Bored Apes took off on their, the punks, it was like it's launching a lot of massive projects when it comes to the NFT space. And they're like, you know what? I know we've been riding this off the back of you creators and really enjoying those mint fees, but you know what? We're going to cut you out of it. I mean, you can't even talk about what a bad move, but this is an organization that's centralized, right? You have OpenSea, a centralized company. And what did they do? The first thing they wanted to do is hurt the people that their very platform was built around, and we're talking about putting CBDCs in the hands of central banks and governments. What could go wrong, Jeff? Sounds like nothing could potentially go wrong there.
Nothing. It's perfect.
No, I mean, it's like, it seems to be pretty okay, right?
I like it. Why not put the hands put the full power control in the hands? If you kind of like the infrastructure that exists right now, especially when it comes to money, the money play, which again is the threat that this entire decentralized framework represents, right? So if we're thinking about at the highest levels with the SEC or Gary Gensler, representing the lobbyist groups of the banking infrastructures and the financial institutions on a global scale. So it definitely represents a major threat, because money is power, and control of money is even more power. So that's kind of where we sit right now. You move everything into this decentralized framework, all of a sudden they start losing little bits of power. Even with the CBDCs, Chip, they lose little bits of power, because they're not going to control the software that develops the CBDC. That's going to go to a third party. The third party has the mechanism to say, hey, you know what? We're not going to let there be a CBDC that doesn't have, privacy, as an example, unless they control the narrative, which I guess they could push those institutions. We'll
have to see, Jeff, but I don't know. I just don't have a lot of trust around that. And one thing they get at here is the XLS20, which we were waiting for a long time to pass. It's finally there. It was designed with the creators in mind. And what it does, it enforces those royalties up front. And then what I love, and obviously, we're working on a project right now. We have our own NFT project that we're vigorously working on getting out there, because really we're waiting for this to come out. And also that technical requirement that you need to launch that NFT project. And then there's going to be critical features embedded, let's say like automatic royalties, co-ownership, to make it more powerful, seamless, and more accessible to a larger audience. Also becomes more important for smaller artists that don't have that massive teams behind them. I'm looking at us, Jeff, right now, right? Because we're doing this on our own. You don't have that massive team of people that's going to figure this all out. To help track the royalties, because counting's one issue of it. The transactions made over time, the provenance of the work. Instead, they just need marketplaces, upfront, transparent fees, and transactions. So that's pretty cool. Bua has an upcoming drop in February, says it's a difficult world to algorithmically track and trace transactions and royalties on secondary market sales. Artists need accurate protections, including enforceability and traceability. Don't require signing away your royalties in order to join a ledger. Now, that's a really important thing right there. And this is why it was worth the wait, Jeff, because these kind of protections for you gotta look after the people that are making the NFTs, the artwork, and all that. I love it. It's gonna vary, right? I mean, because I think our royalty is like 80%, which seems a little high, but I think it's gonna be okay, Jeff, in the end. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, the nice part about it is because and you bring back the example of Napster, right? I mean, people wanted to have the ability to share music. People, which is some of the problems even that Spotify ran into in the early days, because they were taking money from the hands of all of these production companies, or they were changing the rhythmic flow of how money moves through the process. How many people's hands does that money touch? How many people are getting a piece of the pie? If you can cut out that infrastructure, because it's infrastructure that's no longer needed. To an extent, you need the marketing team, right? People need to go out and market the music, or you need some infrastructure. But if you can remove most of the infrastructure, then you can also bring down the cost of the music that's going to the people. At the end of the day, people enjoy music, but but I think most people also enjoy free music. Hence the advent of the radio. People tune into the radio. People, pay for XLM or XLM. People pay for XM radio. So if you're
Sirius
willing,
XM, Jeff.
Sirius XM now, right? It's not just XM, but the Sirius XM, but you're paying a small amount per month. We're moving to everything as a service, Chip. Everything is software as a service, music as a service. Everything is moving in a direction that you're paying a small monthly fee, and you're gaining access to an immense library of everything. I think we've kind of moved beyond a point where people are buying individual songs, individual music, albums, and things like that. We're transitioning. And so how do you then take a $10 monthly subscription and divvy that up amongst all of these artists? Who's getting the bulk of that $10 a month subscription? How does it work? And then, should these artists make, how is the revenue supposed to be generated when you create the artwork? I mean, this conversation really would be interesting to see everybody's input on something like this. How long does that art follow within the ecosystem where you're making money off? And you brought up how Metallica really brought down Napster, and they were saying they
killed it.
They killed it. And it's because they said, we're not making money anymore. I mean, we sell one CD, it gets uploaded into Napster, and now no one else is going to buy a CD. And at that point, people weren't paying monthly fees to belong to Napster. Everything was free. Free doesn't work either. All right. So people want free music, but free totally doesn't work. So if you're listening to the radio free, the radio station's paying the royalty. So it's just a matter of how much money you have to pay per art. And again, you cut out all of that infrastructure, cut out all the fat. Now all of a sudden that dollar gets divvied up, and you could get the bulk of that dollar going to the artist. And then you can have the bulk of the small percentage of those dollars over long periods of time going to the artist that made the product. I mean, it starts to make sense, but I don't know, man, this could go on a long time. I kind of like it. I like the trajectory.
Yeah, it's a cool topic, and I'm really happy that it's finally here. Crypto Ryan, thank you. Says, grab a coffee on Me Legends. Thank you for that. Always appreciate the support, especially the folks that click that little button that says support. It's a little nominal fee, but again, it helps take care of the some of the expenses we have associated with the podcast around here. And because who knows, Jeff, this could all go away someday. It does not necessarily mean it's going to be here forever. do this out of the joy and pure joy of our hearts, but you and I are getting pretty busy these days with some projects. So
It's true. Very true. Andy, XLM is one of the utility coins that will be part of the new system, Chip. Do doubt. XRP is much bigger and will dominate. XLM will work
no doubt.
along with XRP and several other coins. It's an
Wait a minute,
interesting
no
point.
doubt there. No doubt.
All right. Chip, Jungle was sharing some commentary here from Brad Garlinghouse. It's a 30-second.
Wait, before you go on that, can I just stick on the NFT thing for one more second?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Just because I wanted to announce this here. If you guys haven't seen this, this is really cool. So xPectar, you know, obviously we had Dirk on not very recently, but the xPectar project, which is very cool. This is what I like about xPectar is because the inclusion and the collaboration with other projects. So they have this gallery that you can download and walk through. You can download it to your computer. It's not available for Mac yet, but you can download it on a PC and you can actually walk through. And when the gallery you're looking at with all of these cool things on there is not all just xPectar, Jeff. This is everybody that is participating. So you have all these cool projects. You know, the Wild Stag is in there. You know, Pixel Tribes. I was on a Spaces yesterday with XRP Possum. It's just really cool stuff. That the fact that they have this inclusionary stuff, and then our pal over here. Let me see if I can find this, but I wanted to jump into. Let me see if I can find the right tweet here. Yeah. So XRPP, who's a regular on here, he said, quite a beautiful way to view and share all your favorite NFTs. And then I said, you know, I can't wait to see our NFT project in the Great Gallery, right, Jeff? Because that'll be cool. You're walking through it. It's like, oh,
that'd be sweet.
Check that out. And then John Doe, who's been a long OG here, said, will there be a Kef and Simon NFT variant? Is what he wants to know, Jeff. And I'm like, we haven't given much thought to that, but I don't know, Jeff. I don't know. But that wouldn't it be funny if you had a Kef and a Simon character?
That would be interesting. We should
obviously for some of you that are listening, you're like, that doesn't make sense. Well, somebody in the comment one time referred to us as Kef and Simon, which is a little bit off. I get the Kef was just a fat finger on the J and the K, but the Simon, I don't know. It said, you know, I could see that as an ultra rare NFT. John Doe, we're gonna have to think about that. And I said, yeah, we're releasing an NFT series. Can you guess what it is? John Doe said, are there lemon trees in the background? You guys earned it, Jeff and Chip, for over 2 years, collectively dedicated several days a week to educating us in the space. There's an NFT to buy with great history, purpose behind it. Don't be so sure, John Doe. I don't know. I wouldn't go. I don't know if it's that exciting, but I think it'd be cool. OTC NFT. Now, this is the first time, Jeff, we have seen this hashtag. It was birthed by John Doe, but I saw this and I said, I love it. OTC NFT. Can we get any more letters in there? It just rolls off your tongue.
It's awesome. I like it. I think
so I just thanked him.
We'll be able to use it.
Solid guest. Thanks for the kind words. Really appreciate you being an awesome supporter. So I just wanted to throw that in there since we were on the NFT group. But let's get into this commentary by Jungle over here.
That's all. Yeah. So before we do that, I like this kind of train. Steve Walker, you'll own nothing but be happy renting and subscribing. How about that? You own nothing, but you're paying them monthly for everything.
Too, Jeff. There's a lot of pushback on that. You'll own nothing. Listen, I don't think if you ever wanted to have a bigger spotlight in a little city in Switzerland than this year, and it wasn't good. And it used to just happen, and it got very little coverage. Now it's getting a lot of coverage, and not for the right reasons. So I love the pushback, and I love the people standing up. Jeff, I always liken it to that movie, A Bug's Life, that Pixar movie that, maybe you saw that movie many years ago. It was a little story about some ants that were basically ruled by a couple grasshoppers until one day they figured out, hey, man, there's a lot more of us than those stupid grasshoppers. And this is what those elites don't realize is don't piss us off, because when you hit us in the pocketbook, when you come after our money, that's when we pay attention. And the other time we're like oblivious. But when you crush us where it counts in our wallets, then we stand up and say, oh, wait a minute. So I don't think this thing's going to go over.
Alchemist, I own nothing already and am ready for the collapse.
I love how positive Alchemist is. You can always count on Alchemist for some positive vibes, to bring us through. But most of the time, if you see me laughing, it's because of Alchemist comments. I got
great comments. Sold all my properties and businesses. Bring on the collapse. So here's Laurel. When XRP moons will OTC still be here, guys. Man, I would say yes. Maybe in a studio together.
Yeah, I think
XRP moons, and we're gonna have a beautiful studio.
We would do it more frequently, I would think, Jeff. I mean, my thought is it would probably be more of a. I mean, right now we do this for fun, but I mean, if we wanted to go at this serious, and also think we would
Even
also
more
we would launch our other podcast too, which would probably be more geopolitical. So we'd
Yeah,
have
it'd
two
be sweet.
slants.
Oh yeah, we'd have 2 different channels. That'd be amazing. We've got Alchemist. Adobe going to subscription was the last straw for me. And there's something to be said. You think about how many of these subscriptions are just draining you. It's just crazy. The pizza, nope, the pizza's gone. Sorry, we are Crypto Bag
By the
Boy.
way, I've had an Adobe subscription since the beginning of time, Jeff, since they went to that. And that was a while ago.
So what is Garlinghouse? And hopefully you can hear this. Every video I pulled up was a little bit low. You can let me know if you can hear it. What does Garlinghouse have to say when he's interviewed about the Hinman emails? And this lawsuit is churning and burning. And obviously we've seen some. This is a short 29-second clip.
But yeah, there's something called the Hinman email.
Can you hear that?
It's low. Why are these videos so bad?
Everyone, even right off their website, everything was low. Let's see if you can hear it.
But yeah, there's something called the Hinman email. You know, Bill Hinman, the director of corporate finance at the SEC, gave a speech in June 2018 about how ETH had been a security, but had magically become not a security. And there's some emails associated with that the judge ordered turned over 6 times. We finally did get those emails. And I think when those come to light, I think you will see more kind of like, how is it possible the SEC decided to bring a case against Ripple, given what they were saying within their own walls? But
yeah, given what they've been saying within their own walls. So yeah, it seems like it was a last minute thing. There was, it was funny because John Deaton had speculated early days that he thought there was some mention of XRP, but I would imagine it would probably be hard not to have mentioned other, especially when you look at back then, if you look in 2018 of the top, right? So Ripple was, I mean, XRP was one of the top performers. And it's top 3, I believe, right? Top 1, 2, or 3. I think it was Bitcoin, Ethereum, and at one point, XRP did flip Ethereum. But think about it back then. They would have probably mentioned, if any altcoins, would have mentioned at least some of the ones in the top 5, if not the top 10. So what is your thought when he mentions that, especially what they were saying within their walls? So were they talking about them being if Bitcoin is the same way, aren't all the other altcoins? Would they say something along those lines, or did they mention specific ones? What are your thoughts?
I think we have, there's obviously, something rotten within the SEC, something rotten to the core, where they're, over the past years, we've seen the government trying to pick winners from losers. And at this point, that trend has got to stop. So here we go again, where they're trying to figure out and pick winners from losers. Are they going to try to pick first mover advantage? Are they picking winners and losers based on the outlook of how much money they can make, or how much money they can make for their lobbyist groups? Is that how these decisions are being made? Are they looking at, some of the technology and see what might be counterintuitive to what they think is good for that, again, their own pocketbooks? I mean, it's kind of crazy, how they're trying to, figure this out. We saw some conversation with even with Senator Lummis, she kept referencing Bitcoin. Why was she so hyper focused on Bitcoin? So obviously there's a whole asset class. Why is Bitcoin the only one that's accurate? Why wouldn't the XRPL that brings full utility to the movement of money be the right one? Why isn't XLM and the Stellar the right one? Why is Ethereum the right or wrong one? What is going on? And if Ethereum is the right one in terms of smart contract, then how do you fix the broken aspects of it? And then how do you, as the government, declare it as the chosen one? I think this is where we have a lot of issue at foot that's trying to be corrected at this point. So, and the only way to get that corrected, we're seeing a lot of overreach again by the 3-letter agencies within the government. We're seeing massive overreach right now. even with the ATF. The ATF is throwing out all sorts of crazy notions when it comes to, if you can say, firearms. The SEC is throwing out all sorts of crazy ideas when it comes to cryptocurrencies and, and digital assets and blockchain. And it's across the board. We're seeing one after another after another. At some point, the people have to say, you know what, enough's enough. You can't keep infringing on the rights of the people. You can't infringe on our Constitution. You can't infringe on putting America first in the eyes of those who live in this country.
Or their country, Jeff, or their respective country,
or right, or their respective country. I mean, if you live over in Nigeria, guess which country comes first? Nigeria. The reason why Nigeria comes first is because you live in Nigeria. You want it to be first. You got to make sure that you're doing well and everybody's living well and everybody's free and everybody has an opinion that counts and matters and everybody has equal opportunities to grow and build. That's what this is all about over here. But there's elements within the government that's trying to crush that and make it sound like that's a bad thing. How is that a bad thing? I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever. And 2023 is going to be the best year ever on record, because we're digging ourselves out of a pit of despair from the past 2 years, Chip.
Jeff, I like that. Yeah, and we the people are standing up and we're united, and we're a lot more united than I believe you would have the mainstream media or anyone else think. We are united, and this whole cryptocurrency thing has gotten people even more united, because we don't care about borders and whatever cultures and all that stuff. We care about freedom. We care about the way we want to be able to purchase and make our own investments, and certainly enjoy that fruit of our labor by making our investments. And of course, there's those that don't want that. But I wanted again, Brad Garlinghouse said some things in the Davos, and what happened? Everyone's like, the settlement thing got raised again, Jeff. The settlement was going crazy. I was in crypto threads talking about it. And this is Alex Dobrovna. He wrote this because I was looking for it, but he wrote this. This was on September 24th of 2021. Brad Garlinghouse appeared with on Fox Business, and they had asked him about, he said that Ripple will be willing to settle with the U.S. the SEC. And if there's absolute certainty about XRP, and the exact quote was, to the extent we can find a constructive path forward with the SEC, of course, we want to find that. There's no scenario, though, that we're going to settle unless there's absolute certainty about what is XRP on the go-forward basis. That's the only clarity that's going to matter. If the SEC is willing to say that and publicly put that forward, there will be a settlement. If you think the SEC is going to go for that, and basically destroy any potential future crypto enforcement, then you're in that settlement camp. I'm not in the settlement camp, Jeff. We don't live in that settlement camp. So anyway, and then Jeff, I wanted to talk about this too, just a little quick hit. It was something that Alchemist said that made me think about it. This is kind of where we are. If you could just take that down. So Roshan Patel put this out. He said, I was rejected by Apple, I was rejected by Amazon, I was rejected by Facebook. I was 28 years old and broke. I decided to start my own startup. Now I'm 30 years old and broke. So it's
I thought there's going to be something great at the end.
So it's like it's kind of where we are, Jeff. It's like, but it's a funny tweet, but it's not really true. This is he's actually the founder and CEO of Walnut HQ, which is this right here. It's a healthcare now, pay later. So it's a way to finance healthcare, especially in the US. Just was a funny tweet, but any founder, a lot of people think founders are just rolling in it because you got your own company. Well, I hate to tell you, but the way it works, and been through the funding rounds, is the VCs would want you to be couch surfing. They almost don't want you to pull a salary. They're like, it's your company. They almost want you to not even be compensated. This is the kind of conversations I've had in the past. Like, how are you pulling such an exorbitant salary? You're like, an exorbitant salary? Dude, I made twice as much, 2.5 times this, working in the outside world. What are you talking about? That's way too much money. This is what their value is around, Jeff. But they gave it
Alchemist,
to FTX on the dream.
Alchemist. Cold storage will be our coffins when they bury us waiting for moon. Not your can, not your garbage.
By the
Not
way,
final estate planning advice.
by the way, Jeff, we don't have an official anything of the channel, but I think it's fair to say that Alchemist can be the official. What's the word I'm looking for? Naysayer? No, it's not. That sounds negative. Just, I guess, the official. The official counter, right? He's the counter that keeps the channel, right?
Hey, posts great stuff.
Oh, I laugh all the time. It's really, it's awesome.
AR almost 40 and broke. It's sweet.
Well, I'm older than that, so don't worry about it. That's what kind of happens, you know. And sometimes you push everything into a startup, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Official wet blanket.
Official wet blanket to pour, official cold water to pour rain cold water and everything.
Ice cold water, you're gonna rain on our parade.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
all right, man. This was awesome. Chip, it is that time.
It is that time, man. We gotta rock and roll here. So
man, Chip, it's been a pleasure once again.
I can't believe that went by so fast, Jeff. We just started.
Dude, an hour flies by so fast. I do want to say to everyone out there, you guys are the best and the brightest in all of crypto YouTube space. You guys are amazing. We'll be back on again tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is great. And for Crypto Eddie, yes, 8 a.m. on Saturday mornings, Eastern Time. That is when we gather here weekly, 3 days a week, Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the poll that I put up, XLM or XRP, I gave you guys 4 options: XRP, XLM, BTC, and SHIB. XRP, 85%. XLM got 9%. Bitcoin and the SHIB, which I'm shocked, both tied at 2%.
Well, it's good. I was
positive SHIB was going to be up there, like at 100%.
Well, it's good to see that when I see the Bitcoin's rising, a rising tide floats all boats. So, we started seeing a little bit of movement. So I'm cheering Bitcoin to go back to 40,000. Let's go.
Bitcoin.
Let's go to Bitcoin. Yeah. Thank God that's over. That is officially over forever. All right. So that's all we have, guys. Really appreciate you guys being here. And like Jeff said, the best and the brightest. Come on back tomorrow night. And we'll have a whole set of new topics to talk about. And there's so much going on. There's even things that we didn't get to here, but that happens. But come on back. Official troll. Yeah. And no, Hans, we won't be eating bugs because we're not going to push back on it. He says, is that the moral of the story? No, it's not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is we win. We are bigger in numbers. We are united, and we will crush your head like a grape. Okay, just saying. Here we go. That's it.
That's it.
And Jeff.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.